The following program is produced through the community television facilities of Saugus TV. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of Saugus TV, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, my friend. This is the podcast of the Disgruntled Italian, and today we have a special guest, which is Peter Rosetti. It's a vice chair of the Board of Appeals in Saugus, and thank you, Peter, for being here and visiting us and giving us some of your time when you're busy.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay, very welcome. So the reason why I have you here is because I would like to educate people of Saugus about Saugus and how the town hall works.
Okay.
Because so many people, today's lifestyle require long hours, working hours, and they don't have the time to go and search and things like that. So if we can provide them an alternative avenue for information, we'll be very happy to do so. Okay. And Mr. Rossetti, do you mind if I call you
No,
Peter?
Peter is fine.
Yes. Peter, he is kind to give us some of his time so that he'll help us out on this endeavor. So, Peter, I have a question for you. The question is, what is the function of the Board of Appeal on the Saugus Town Hall?
Okay. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts instituted zoning. Zoning are laws that regulate what can be built and how it can be built. This happened in the 1920s. Okay, a long time ago. It was designed for safety because you didn't want to have houses up against each other, because if there was a fire in one house, it might cause damage to the next house. And that could be serious. People could get killed. So they instituted rules for zoning. And the zoning was designed to be both commercial, meaning business, and residential. And they wanted to make sure of people's safety. Now, sometimes the rules were very strict. Because of that, they had to make provisions for exceptions to the rules. So the Zoning Board of Appeals deals with three types of issues. One is if you want to do something with your property that's not allowed. For example, you're in a single-family neighborhood and you want to have a second family live in your house, okay? That's one. A second is what's called a variance. A variance deals with coverage of lots. So how much area you're going to take up on a piece of property. So you don't want to have a house that's too close to the street, because then if a car went off the road, it could hit the house. Or it could make walking by the house difficult. If the house was right on the street, people would have to walk in the street to get around it. So they put in rules that said houses have to be set back from property lines, or you could only have a certain amount of property that's covered by a house on a lot, usually 25%. So you have special permits which allow to do something that isn't permitted, like the two-family, or a variance which allows for lot coverage. And the third is what's called an appeal against the building inspector. So if the building inspector says, I'm going to let your neighbor do something with the property that normally isn't allowed, you could then go to the town and say, hey, I think the building inspector made a mistake and would like to have a hearing on it and find out why he did this. He may have a very good reason, or he may not. But those three are the main issues that come before the Board of Appeals. There's also an area that I know we're going to talk about later called 40Bs, which deals with housing, and that's an area that's covered by the Board of Appeals also, but that's a special area. In general, the Board of Appeals is very informal. They tend to meet once a month. The present board, the chairman is Tom Travers. He's been chair for a number of years. He does an excellent job. He controls the meeting well because sometimes things get heated. I've been on various zoning boards of appeals for more than 30 years, so kind of a long time. Well, anyways. So
Okay,
that's
so-
the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's
So that's
informal.
an
Yeah.
okay, and actually works almost like as an investigative section of it to make sure that things are done properly and
Yes.
checking the action of the two parties that come in front of you.
Correct. What's supposed to happen is the members of the board, and there's 5 permanent members of the board and 2 alternates, so a total of 7. All the board members are supposed to go out and look at the properties. We're given copies of plot plans and maps that show what the person wants to do and where they're located. We go out, we look at the properties, we talk to the neighbors, we determine either this is something that looks okay or doesn't look okay, or we have questions. And then when the people come in, we question them, we question their neighbors or town officials, and we ask, why are you doing what you're doing? Do you have a reason? And very often people do. They'll say, a relative is moving in with me, or we need more space because now we have another child, or something along those lines. Sometimes we say no because it might interfere with neighbors or privacy or some issue. But we try to be accommodating to people. We try to listen to both them and their neighbors and reach an agreement between them.
Oh, very well. So to conclude this one is, I suppose, that the Board of Appeal, the stance of it, it's more likely an accommodating situation to not to be scared of, to be in front of you guys.
Exactly. We try to keep it as informal as possible. People don't need to have attorneys or lawyers come with them. Sometimes they do if it's a complicated situation, but they don't necessarily need that. Usually, if a person comes in and can explain what they want to do, we'll be happy to listen to them.
Very well.
Okay?
Now, Peter, I have another question for you.
Sure.
I have a series of it. And the second question is, well, actually, you already answered to that, but I make it. Is
Sure.
the Board of Appeal for all the people or just for member of the community?
Okay. The Board of Appeals can hear residents, meaning people who live in town. It can hear businesses that operate in town, or it can hear people from outside of town if they have information on a certain issue. So if John Jones says, gee, I want to build a house, but the lot I want to put my house on is unusually shaped or bigger or smaller, okay, we could hear that. If someone came in, Market Basket, and said, gee, we want to put a store in Saugus, we could hear that because they're going to be a resident or they're going to be in Saugus. If someone came in and said, gee, we want to hear about a 40B or we want to hear about some statewide issue, we could hear about that as it applies to Saugus, not if it applies to another city or town, but if it applies to the Saugus community, we could hear that. So it can apply to a lot of different ones.
Very well.
Yeah.
And my other question is, how the affordable housing works and who is eligible for, and what is Chapter 40B that you previously mentioned?
Okay.
And why it was created? I mean,
Okay.
it's This is like more than one salvo at one shot.
Sure. Massachusetts, being one of the original colonies, had a population bigger than a lot of other places. Because of that, and because of the times, people tended to have more than one child. So people had a lot of kids. They needed someplace to put the kids. So they tended to build houses that had a lot of rooms. So if you had 5 or 6 kids or 10 kids, you needed to have some bedrooms to put them in. So you tended to build a bigger house. Over the years, people didn't have as many children. Today, people don't have 10 children usually. So they only need room for 2 or 3 children. A lot of the houses, though, still have the 10 rooms. Now, during the time of World War II, we had places around us like GE and Lynn. And GE and Lynn at the time had 25,000 people who worked there. Well, the people who worked there needed places to live. So the state and the government encouraged people to say, okay, we will rent out rooms and we'll allow people to live, even though it's not their family, in the same house as a family. Well, over the years, what's happened is because families have gotten smaller, people still have the big houses around Saugus Center, for example. Lots of houses have 10 rooms or many rooms. Because of that, if it's just a husband and wife because the kids have gone to college and moved off, they don't need a house that big. So what they've tried to do is say, gee, we could rent out part of the house, get some income from that would help us survive and serve a purpose of giving people places to live. Well, some people didn't like that idea because they didn't like the idea of all of a sudden having a lot of people in one house because now they needed parking spaces, they needed more town services. The town passed rules that said it's a single-family neighborhood, meaning you can only have one family per house. Well, the government of Massachusetts said, gee, we need the housing, we need places to put people, otherwise employers aren't going to have the people to work in their jobs. So they passed what was called 40B. 40B said that if you wanted to build apartments and places for people to live, you could do that, but you had to make certain accommodations. And the accommodations would be that the housing can't be high-priced housing. It has to be affordable. Okay, and by affordable, usually it's you meet a certain percentage of the average income. So if your income was lower because you were working in General Electric, not that GE has low wages, but if you had a lower income, you could still live in these places, but the amount that they would charge you to live there would be a lower amount. So in return for reducing some of the zoning restrictions, you would be allowed to have apartments, but you had to charge a lower price for them. So essentially, that's what 40B is. Now, the Massachusetts governor, Governor Healy, has determined that Massachusetts is short approximately 200,000 housing units. So they need space for 200,000 people to live. The way that they're determined to try and meet that goal and produce housing is to produce it at a lower cost, but they allow developers and people who want to have rental units to do it if they charge a lower price. So they have to charge less for the rent, and in return for that, they get a break on some of the zoning restrictions. That's what 40B is all about.
So, Peter, when you just told us about a lower price,
Yeah.
are those fixed figures or are figures that vary from occasion to occasion?
Okay. In general, they determine the average income every year in the state. And they will say the income is a certain level. Based on that, the amount that the housing can be is a reduced amount, usually something like 60% or 70% of that income. So if the average income is $100,000, just for example, if it's 60%, it would be if a family is making $60,000, then their income or their rent would be tied to what their income level is. So they could pay a lower rent, although the unit would still be the same as ones that would cost $100,000.
Oh, so that it's, from my point of view, that it's a very good law.
It is
regulation. Yes.
unless you happen to be one of the neighbors or someone who thinks that my house is worth more than 100,000 or my property is worth more than 100. Why should someone be able to live for 60,000?
Yes, that's
So
the other
there's some
side of the
controversy
model, of the medal.
Yeah.
Well, that's good, but it's still sometimes I think that the intention behind the action are the one that they determine the success of rules, and
Sure.
I think Maura Ely, from where I see, she's got clear idea and good one.
Yeah. Well, the whole idea of the 40B is it allows people who are new to the job market, who are younger people, who don't have the funds to be able to buy a house, to be able to have someplace to live. And the advantage is that employers now have a labor market. They have the ability to get people to work in their jobs. And you need that to be able to have the economy work, to be able to have the supermarket. You need to have people who can work there. And they aren't always paid the highest amount.
Yes.
But they still need a place to live.
Yes.
And it has to be affordable. So people shouldn't have to pay more than 30 or 40% of what they make to have a house to live in or a place to live in.
Yes, and yes, I agree, and this is pretty good. The thing is that I see, and which has got nothing to do with our theme of today, is the fact that when we're talking about wages, now we have a certain segment of the society that they say, oh, that's enough money. I don't want to pay any more than that.
No.
While the other sections say, oh, well, I need a little bit more money here. So that is probably for another episode.
Well, there's also a limitation on when you take an area like Saugus and you say it's so many square miles or square acres or whatever. Because of the zoning, there's a limitation on what you can put there. So if each house has to be 20,000 square feet of land, you can only take and cut Saugus up into so many 20,000 square foot lots. And most of those lots are gone now. They've already been built on. So there's not a lot of places to build new houses. But there's always more people because people have children and they want their children to live near them. So they'd like them to have their own house, but there may not be room to build a house.
So may I say that maybe this is where it can solve the problem is those condo units, apartment units, where one building, it will house several tens of hundreds of families.
Sure.
So under what rules those type of building fall into it? Are there any variances to the 40B for those type of building?
Absolutely. The town has another board that's called the Planning Board, and the Planning Board controls streets and roads, but they also control new developments. So if someone wishes to come in and build an apartment building, for example, they might go to the Planning Board instead of going the 40B route. If they go to the Planning Board, they're not able to make use of the zoning variations that the Zoning Board of Appeals can give. But at the same time, they're not required to set the prices low. So they can charge full price for condos or whatever. So if they say we're going to sell this condo for $200,000, they don't have to say, but we'll also sell some for 60% of that.
So
Okay. So they can do that. Now, there's pluses and minuses of doing that. The pluses are that the town gets a higher tax value because the buildings that are being built are expensive, and the town gets to collect tax based on the value of the building, not just necessarily on the rental income. They also get restricted as to things like the height of the building. So the town says that you can only have buildings that are 4 stories high. That would be a planning board regulation. Zoning Board of Appeals could say we're going to vary that and we're going to allow the building to be 8 stories high. When you construct those buildings, the planning board can require, or it requires that up to 4 stories can be made out of wood. The Zoning Board of Appeals says if it's over the 4 stories, you can build them, but it has to be constructed out of steel and concrete. That makes a difference in the fire protection. Our fire department doesn't necessarily have equipment that can put out a fire on the 8th floor of a building, okay, because the ladder trucks don't go that high, okay? And the requirements would be that on the bigger buildings, they have to put in sprinkler systems. It's more expensive to build.
So it costs more, and therefore it makes more of a value too.
Exactly.
An additional value.
Exactly.
And the town hall, on the other end, is they getting more taxes out of it.
Yep.
Now, in those buildings that they have this requirement, okay, do they have a how should I say it? Consideration when they were starting from the zoning board. They can go from one section of one commission to another commission and to another commission until everything is solved, or when the zoning board says, okay, this is what you can get, and they're saying, well, we thought we could get more with this. So are they coming directly to your office, in front of your commission, or they have to go around something else before that?
Well, I've served on probably 8 40B zoning issues, okay, projects. I think that's probably more than anyone else, but it doesn't matter. Yeah. It's a negotiation
Experience
process.
Important.
If someone goes to the planning board, they negotiate with the planning board as to what they want to build. Now, there are certain restrictions as far as state zoning codes and building codes that say you have to have so many windows. It has to be so many square feet for a bedroom. The materials that you use have to be certain materials.
Certain criteria,
okay?
Yes.
Those can also apply to 40Bs, but again, it's a negotiated process. Someone could come in and say, we want to put 500 units as a 40B, and it may get negotiated to 300 units. For the planning board, they have more authority to limit the number of units based on town bylaws. 40B exempts them from most town bylaws, but not all. Okay, so as far as zoning regulations, they can be exempt from the zoning, but not the building codes. Planning board can't exempt them from zoning,
But not from building.
Or building codes.
The building code are made to save,
Safety, exactly.
prevent some tragedy and stuff like that.
Exactly.
While the zoning board it's more likely, if I get this one correct, it's more likely talking to the developer and get to a point where they present a plan which is acceptable until it goes to the Board of Appeals.
Yeah.
And the Board of Appeals say either okay or said, well, you know what? You guys should be doing this one a little bit different.
Yep.
Okay, so I got that. That's good. Now, my last question for you,
Sure.
Peter, is being also a resident of Saugus for a few decades,
Sure.
I would like to have your opinion of the future of Saugus.
Okay.
What would you see Saugus, or what would you like to see Saugus either become of, prosperous in a certain way?
Sure.
Please.
Sure. Well, I've lived in Saugus all my life. Okay, 75 years now.
You beat me on that.
Yeah. So I've been here quite a while. I've seen a lot of changes. Back in the old days, Route 1 at Essex Street or beyond Essex Street had a rotary. It was not, there was an overpass, but there was also a giant rotary there with traffic lights. There used to be traffic lights on Route 1 where people could walk up to the light, push a button, the light would turn red, it would stop the traffic, and you walked across Route 1. Needless to say, those things have changed. Saugus is kind of unique in its location because we're close to Boston, we're close to the airport, we're close to major highways. Because of that, people want to live here because if they work in Boston or they work in Waltham, they can jump on the highway and they can get there. Sometimes the traffic is heavy.
I clocked at 7 minutes from one exit to another to Boston.
Yeah.
That is very close.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, if you go to work in Boston or you have to fly to different places, it's very, very convenient. There's a downside to that, though. The downside is in the old days, people used to have one car in a house. Then it got to be two cars, and then as children grew up, they got their own cars. So now you can have 3, 4, 5 or more cars in a house. That means more traffic. The streets were laid out many, many, many years ago, and because of that, a lot of them are narrow. People don't necessarily have driveways or driveways that can accommodate that many cars. So it makes traffic heavier, and a lot of people use Saugus as a cut-through because if they live in places like Lynn or Marblehead or Salem or places to the north and west of us, they use Saugus to get through, to get to where they're going. That creates the traffic. And it's very difficult for Saugus because a lot of these people are just passing through. Route 1 handles upwards of 100,000 cars a day.
That's a lot of cars.
Yeah. Saugus's population is somewhere between 25 and 30,000 people. So only a quarter of the people on the roads are really from Saugus.
That's right. Or even less than that, probably.
Yeah. So a lot of the people are just going through Saugus. The thing that a lot of people don't take into consideration is houses and apartments. People usually get up in the morning, they go to work, and they come home at night. So they go in and they go out of Saugus once. On the other hand, if you have a store like Market Basket, for example, you may have 200 or 300 people an hour who come to that store and make a trip to that store. And they may not even live in Saugus. So a lot of the traffic is generated from people outside of Saugus going to commercial and going to Route 1. Route 1 is a state highway. It's controlled by the state. It's not controlled by the town. So the town couldn't set up a toll booth that said, if you're from Saugus, we charge you, nothing. If you're from some other city or town, we charge you something.
$1 or whatever.
They can't do that.
No, unfortunately.
And,
yes.
and they can't say, if you're from Swampscott, you can't use our roads because it's a public road.
That's right.
So all of those things change. Saugus doesn't have a lot of open space anymore.
That's right.
Because houses are so expensive. It's difficult to build them. It costs a lot of money. When they get sold, the average house in Saugus probably sells in excess of $500,000. There are not a lot, but there are homes in Saugus that are worth well over $1 million.
Quite a few of them.
In my lifetime, I never thought I would see homes selling for over $1 million in Saugus, but they do.
Yes, and demographic, it's responsible.
Yeah. We do have something in Saugus that I'm very proud of. It's called Braycart. Braycart is Department of Conservation and Recreation. It's 600 acres of land that's open. It's open forest, and it's for the public to use as a park. We have a group called Friends of Braycart that help with the park, that take care of the park and encourage programs and activities up there. So that's something that Saugus has that I'm very, very pleased with and hope will continue, and we're trying to do activities there. But a lot of people in Saugus don't even know about that.
And as a matter of fact, I just found out.
Yeah.
Is there this Friends of Braycart? Is there like a club with a membership of anything, or somebody wants to volunteer for?
Absolutely.
How that works? How that's?
Well, if they want to contact me, I'll be happy to give them the information, or they can contact the Department of Conservation or Recreation, and Recreation, or they can just call Braycart. It's 781-233-0834, and if they say they want to get involved, they'll put them in touch.
Yes.
We do have activities. Once a year, we have what's called the Fall Festival, which is an open event, open to everyone. They come in, there's face painting, there's different activities for kids, different things that people can see about the park. And it encourages people to get out and enjoy nature.
So please, my friend,
Sure.
Visit the Braycart Park, 600 acres of amenities, and talk to Peter Rosetti. He is the guy to go to. And you'll have a lot of fun.
Yep.
But if I will extend an invitation to you for another episode, if you like it,
Sure.
I will say now that we covered pretty good.
Okay.
And you've been a solid member of the town hall. Maybe sometime in the future we can talk with not just for the Board of Appeals, but also from other like assessors, counselors.
Absolutely.
And we like to have our resident knowing everything possible about the town hall.
Absolutely.
Knowledge is the way to go forward. Knowledge is not the way to progress and for progress.
Saugus has a unique form of government. In general, cities and towns in Massachusetts are either a city that has a mayor and a city council, or they have a town which has a town manager and a town meeting. Saugus has a town manager and town meeting. The town meeting controls the budget and controls activities in the town. I'm sure town meeting members would be happy to come in and speak. Town meeting meets whenever there are zoning or budgetary or bylaw controls that need to be talked about. It also has a Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen controls some of the day-to-day licensing activities. And we have a town manager. I'm sure the town manager would be happy to come in and speak at times.
Well, we will be forward an invitation for it. It's
Absolutely.
very, very nice.
Yeah.
in between my senior moment, I even remember his name is Mr. Crabtree.
Absolutely, yes. Yes, and there are other boards in town that do things. Conservation Commission, for example, preserves open areas and wetlands. There's lots of other boards in town that do different activities, and I'm sure either the boards or their chairs would be more than happy to come in and speak with you. The Board of Health, for example, they frequently deal with issues with different tobacco issues with wind.
Yes.
So they would be happy to come in, I'm sure, and speak.
Yes. Wind is a very important actor in our community.
Absolutely.
And I mean, for bad and maybe for other people that think differently, for good or bad, whatever, but it's part of our community, and we have to be all happy.
Absolutely. And the thing to keep in mind is there can always be differing opinions on different subjects, but that's one of the important things about both our town, our state, and our government is that people are allowed to have different opinions.
Yes.
And just because a person's opinion is different doesn't necessarily make it wrong. It could be just a different way of looking at something and a different consideration.
Yes, very good. I like it. So I enjoyed this meeting with you.
Oh, well,
Peter.
thank you. Thank
It's
you.
Very
It was
nice.
great.
And
Thank you for having me.
and we thank you
be
for
happy
being
to come
here.
back sometime.
To save some time out of, you have a busy schedule, I know that. To me it's an achievement just to get you here. So
Well,
the next time it will be at your convenience, obviously. And,
that's fine.
for other member of the town hall, their idea didn't fall on deaf ears.
Yep.
I like it.
Well, like I said, we have lots of other people involved in town government. I'm sure they would be very happy to come in and speak with you. The Board of Selectmen, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Deborah Panetta, other members of the board would be happy to come in, I'm sure. The manager, the town hall employees, we have some very, very dedicated people in town who have been town employees for many, many years and try to do their best for the town. So I'm sure they'd all be happy to come in and speak with you.
Very well. I'll take it. I'll take you up on it.
All right.
Thank you for it. Appreciate it. As I say, I hope that all this is going to help our community. We need an active community, a community that give us challenges, that we can do a lot of stuff. Saugus, as you say, might run out of space, but it's in a unique position. Very well.
Yes,
Thank you,
it is.
Peter. And for anyone that have any question, they would like to forward it to disgruntleditalian@gmail.com. I will be waiting for your reply. Thank you very much. And everybody, arrivederci.
The preceding program was produced through the community television facilities of Saugus TV. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of Saugus TV, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.